Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today is Tuesday and it's March the 14th, I believe, and I'm going to stitch today on one of my projects. This is called Sad Fairy and it's one of my oldest whips actually, which I started somewhere around the end of 2020. And it's actually been on timeout for a little while. I haven't actually gotten around to stitching on it that much because I've been working mostly on focus pieces, which so I put this aside for a little while, and then today I just decided it was going to be a Sad Fairy day, and why not? Because there's nothing wrong with just bringing out whatever you fancy stitching when you fancy stitching it. So I'm going to work on this lovely lady here today. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this chart before I start stitching. She is a regular sized chart, obviously charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, and the artist is Elena Lazareva, so you can look her up if you want to get some more information. And she's stitched on 25 count even weave, and I'm working 2/1 10th stitch and using DMC threads. Because I know that sometimes, I usually do put most of this information in my descriptions, but sometimes I might forget, and people then send me emails and messages saying, what fabric are you using for that chart and such, so it probably is worth mentioning before I stitch what I've actually got on the go here. So also, this one is 90 colours, and my goodness, what gorgeous colours. I am just so in love, just seeing them again now that I've taken her out of the cupboard. Seeing all these beautiful pinks and lilacs and silvers and greys, it's really a feast for the eyes. Absolutely lovely chart. So onto the method. What I'm actually doing at the moment is the diagonal stitching. If you're not familiar with that, it's working in sort of a diagonal path going down. Some people might go upwards, I go down, and I'm working 10 stitches along at a time. At the moment, I'm on a little bit of a confetti, which means a lot of threads, bit of a confetti joyride at the moment, so I'm having to go really slowly, which is not to everybody's taste. And what a lot of people like to do is to go and do a lot of cross-country, even through the confetti, because it helps them to feel like they're getting somewhere a little bit quicker than just sort of doing what I'm doing, which is a very sort of sedentary, plodding along kind of way. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with going slower when you need to go slower. Actually, any method I've realized is neither good nor bad. It really just depends on the person who's doing it, whether they're enjoying it or they're not enjoying it. That's really what it boils down to, because I have seen some stitchers going literally stitch by stitch. Now, when I'm working along the row, I'm not just doing one stitch, park, the next stitch, park, the next stitch, park. I actually do the same color along the whole row. So I'm skip jumping over colors, which doesn't make it feel quite so bad. And I'm ending my threads somewhere a little way down with a tiny, tiny tail. So yeah, it's not so bad. I'm doing little skips and jumps across the row. Now, I've got all my threads in a box here, and they can really get quite messy. I've started using envelopes. I think envelopes for me has been the way to go. It's been the easiest way for me to actually access the threads, to keep them all in a box, standing up in some sort of like storage system. But again, there are so many different ways to store your threads and stuff like that. I mean, there are so many videos out there now of how to do things. It's just fantastic. You know, in the old days, we had to go and look things up in magazines, maybe go down to the library and look for books, or just ask, you know, our grandparents or people that might have done cross stitching and that sort of thing. I'm not sure this type of cross stitching was done at all. This kind of using these tiny fabrics and actually parking all these threads like this, I don't know. I think that's more of a current thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it wouldn't surprise me now if it had been done way back then. Nothing surprises me. But yeah, it's nice to have so many videos out there that you can actually just go and search for something and you'll get all the information that you need. In fact, you'll get sometimes a bit too much information, I think. Sometimes you go on and you feel like, oh my God, there's like 20 videos on the one question I've asked. Which one do I watch first? You know, will I waste half an hour watching this when the other video is better? Like, sometimes it's just difficult to know what is really helpful and what isn't. But it's great that we have got the choice anyway. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about this diagonal that I'm working. So I find the diagonal really sort of methodical. It's really nice in that you can see your progress straight away. I know that when I'm doing cross country and I'm doing little sections all over the place or just going with my thread wherever it takes me, it feels a bit scatty to me. And it also feels like it doesn't look like I've spent 2 hours stitching and I barely see that I've done anything. I know I have, but I can't tell because the stitches are all spread everywhere. But obviously, if I sit here for 2 hours and I go and do like a couple of blocks, I'll be down to here. So if I get a couple of blocks done down to here, you can see that instantly, right? It looks like there is progress. However, it does feel like you're going more slowly. And I think that's just par for the course when you're doing rows because the holes are so tiny, right? It's going to take a while for them to build up. So really it depends on whether you want to actually get things done. You want to actually get the project done faster, in which case you go off and do more of a cross-country method. Or are you happy just to sort of go along row by row and see a very small progress building up as you go down? But yeah, it does sometimes feel like you're on slow-mo mode. It really does. But that's okay sometimes because, you know, sometimes you want that slowness. You don't want to be speed stitching or anything. You just want to sit there and kind of veg out and do nothing and just, yeah. Maybe you've got one eye on the TV and one eye on the stitching, which is often what I'm doing now. I watched a whole series recently. I think it was Marie Antoinette, which is on the I don't know if it can be watched in the US, but in the UK, it's on the BBC iPlayer. So I watched all episodes of season 1, and that was really interesting. So I had one eye on my stitching and one eye on the episodes, and yeah, it did slow down my stitching because every so often you get so immersed in what you're watching, you literally just stop like that with your needle in your hand and you're looking at the screen. And then before you realise it, 20 minutes have passed where you're looking at the screen and you haven't stitched anything. Oh, but that's okay. That really is okay. I think that's the whole point is for it to be a relaxed activity. I certainly much more enjoy it for relaxation purposes. What I do sometimes do, which is quite frustrating. Now, why has that? I've parked that in the wrong place, I think. And I think I need a less blunt needle for this fabric now that I've started working on it again. But hey. So today is moderately bright. It has been raining, my goodness, did the gods of thunder come down upon us yesterday. It was raining non-stop. I had absolutely no desire to go outside yesterday. I have to keep parking now, and I don't have a grid on this one. I did not think to grid this chart. 2, 3, left. I'm getting way too many park threads here for the moment. I hope there's not going to be too many more. Because what happened when I bought this fabric was there was I think it's a DMC fabric. There was a red grid of 20 by 20 blocks, and it didn't suit me at all. I just could not get with that grid. So I washed it, I dried it, and I carried on stitching. And I much preferred the blank than the 20 by 20. Only it did leave it a lot softer, granted, because I think prior to washing them, they've got some kind of like a plasticky substance on the fabric, probably to make it more stiff, some kind of starchy solvent, and I obviously washed it off, so it got really soft, which was slightly different to stitch with, but it wasn't too difficult. It feels more like cloth now than it did. And I think I gridded with one of those water-soluble pens for a while. And then I just stopped gridding, just carried on and was okay. But sometimes if you're parking underneath, you'd prefer a bit of a grid, to be honest. But what I do is I normally count down from whichever threads are parked around, which can be good and bad. I mean, it's helpful to use your park threads for parking other threads, but if you've parked a thread in the wrong place, that's going to throw everything else off. So it's not the safest way to go. It's really not. So I don't think there's anything else about this chart I can tell you, really. It's I think it's my second oldest, if I'm remembering now, and I wasn't even living in the house I'm living in currently when I started this one. I was somewhere else. But I really, really love her, and I know she's a bit of a slow stitch because it just kind of feels like that now. It feels like I'm kind of going really slowly with her, but that's okay. I mean, I'm not in a hurry to finish anything in particular. This is why I haven't set a goal date for this chart, because I'm not in a hurry to finish it. But I think I will probably be very happy once I get to that 50%. But once I get to 50%, this one's going to look so good. And the reason I'm showing you more of the chart as I stitch today is because I have had a couple of emails, people saying, I'd love to see, your fuller picture. It's really hard to know, to please everybody. Some people really like you to go really in depth with the stitching. I personally don't like that when I'm watching Flosstube, because I'm not usually looking at the screen so much when I'm listening to Stitch with Me's. What I do is I actually stitch myself and just listen. So I don't really need to see people actually doing the stitching. Sometimes if it's more like a tutorial thing, I think it's handy for me to be able to see things a bit more close up. At the moment where I've got my camera positioned, I can't actually zoom in really that much closer, so you'll have to forgive me for that one. Hopefully you're stitching too and just listening. But really, all I'm doing is just stitching along in a row, so it's nothing fascinatingly new or different or exciting even. Leave that one there. I really, really do not want to make a mistake at this point, because I hate it when I do, and then I have to spend 15-20 minutes trying to figure out what I've done, and then going unpicking things. That's never fun at all. What I have noticed is that I've got a lot of part threads of the same colour, so I'm wondering why on earth do I have like 3 threads on the go of the same colour? I don't know. I must have been watching something on Netflix whilst I was doing it. I'm just going to try and wind my threads round a little less messily. Sometimes it's really hard to keep these bobbins tidy. But every little stitch is progress, right? So even if I feel like I haven't actually done a huge amount, I'll feel like I've done something, which is more than I had done this morning when I woke up. And it's a few rows less to do the next time she comes out to play. My goodness, there's a lot of one colour, one stitches. Yes, our famous ninja stitches at the moment. So I'm having to do those ninja stitches and then wind the thread back on the bobbin. So I think this piece, when I come round to finally framing it, I think this piece is a bedroom picture. I think for me to wake up and see this glorious picture is going to be something special. I don't know, I just get that feeling it's going to be nice to see when I'm having my coffee in bed first thing in the morning. I will just look up at it and say, hey, I did that. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, that thread's a little bit short to be parking. I think I'm kind of getting into the groove now. The thing is, when you put down a project for a while, you kind of lose your groove with it. So you get unfamiliar with the colours, you get unfamiliar with the fabric again, and it's kind of like starting something new all over again. So this is the first time I've stitched on her for a few months. So I'm having to get that feel again. Oh no, don't tell me I've got a... Okay, no, that's fine. Sorry, just mumbling to myself about what I'm doing and not doing correctly. So having picked this one up again after a few months, I'm thinking, my goodness, why did I have to start on such a confetti row? When all these part threads, which I'm fairly used to pushing aside part threads by now, it doesn't really bother me, to be honest. I think that once you start on these flowers, they start to get really confetti heavy because they put so many different reds and things inside these petals. Doing this kind of background area is a lot more forgiving, a lot less painful, trust me. So if you think of doing this chart, or if anyone's interested in doing it, or maybe even thinking about starting it, or maybe has it kitted up even, who knows? And I'd love to know if you're doing this one or starting this one. I haven't seen many finishes or progresses on this piece, so it would be nice to see that. So yeah, just as a tip, it's actually much easier. So once you get through these little bits, it gets easy, and especially around here when you've got a lot of whites, it's not too difficult. A bit more easygoing. And I think a great big cloud has just come past, so it's blocking that lovely sun that we had a few minutes ago. So I've been watching a lot of Flosstube. Well, I usually do tend to watch quite a bit of Flosstube. I have quite a number of regular people that I'm subscribed to, which I watch quite frequently. And there's always some new ones popping up as well, and I do forget their names. But if I do remember, which I'm sure I will if I just have a little look around again, I will pop the name of the channels down below in the description, so you can go and check them out. And upon my recommendation, I would definitely say that they are worth a watch. Yeah, so just check the description box. And I tend to favour watching Flosstubers that are working on Heaven and Earth designs, because I am mostly working on those designs, so it's more interesting for me to watch them. I'm not too big on watching Flosstubers that do a lot of samplers, because I like samplers, but I find a lot of them are very samey, and just a lot of alphabets in different, various font, various styles, a lot of little trees and animals and cutesy things. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. I think they're lovely. I just don't have that urge to stitch a lot of samplers. I have one sampler by Bothy Threads that I really loved, and it's got beautiful inscription on it, which I fell in love with, but it was more about the inscription than it was about the actual sampler itself. So that's another one which I started, goodness knows, way back, and still haven't gotten back to working on. But I'm not a samplery person per se. I don't go crazy looking for those type of stitches. What does interest me is these large Heaven and Earth designs. That's what I really got into and haven't really gotten out of, to be honest. Let's see. Now I've got one stitch. The one stitches will kill you. So it would be very, very rare if a sampler came along that I really loved enough to spend time stitching. Yeah, so I'm a bit different like that, but I guess we all have our favorites, right? Now I know it looks like I'm going extra slow, but I am actually going extra slow because I'm distracted chatting, and secondly because I don't want to make a mistake. So I'm trying to be careful, and especially as I'm unfamiliar again with this fabric and with this colour palette. But I have been doing diagonals on my other pieces, which are going really well. And I'm actually looking forward to doing a, not a whip parade, that's not what it's called. An update, a progress update at the end of March. Hopefully. I should be able to get that done, no problem. Okay, where am I parking? This part of this flower section here is particularly, it's kind of like, it's reminding me of the Stitch in Time chart where everybody is going crazy with all the pinks on the top left corner. Sometimes I watch them when they're stitching and I think, I'm so glad I'm not doing that chart, because to me it looks like it's that, especially that top left corner with all the flowers and the little key. It looks absolutely gorgeous, mind you, but it actually looks like a real headache. So many pinks all jammed together. I bet that they're so relieved once they get past that first bit of the chart. This is kind of like intricate surgery. I bet you I'm so good at doing this kind of really slow, confetti, crazy stitching. I'd probably be good enough to take out someone's appendix. Not that I'd want to, mind you. Not at all. Come on now. how much longer do we have to go before we get past this madness? Somebody please tell me this is not another ninja stitch. Oh my god. No, it's another ninja stitch. Do you know what? I could just ignore it. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Or I could do it. I think I'll do it for the sake of appearing to be an angel on camera. Otherwise, normally I might just like blitz over it with a colour that's beside. This is confession time, guys. I'm confessing my sins. I'm sure everybody has a few sins when they're stitching. And maybe some people just mow down their ninja stitches with any colour that's on the needle. Or others might just be, too goody-goody to do that and actually go and get the one strand that they need for that one stitch. Well, I'm a little bit of both, because I'd say it depends on the mood. If it's a good day and I'm in a good mood, I will go and get that one strand like I'm doing now, and I will do that one stitch. Or if I'm feeling particularly, I don't know what the word is. Usually I'm good with words, but sometimes no. If I'm feeling particularly crazy, maybe, or just meh, like I can't be bothered, indifferent. If I'm feeling indifferent, I will just ignore that colour change, and I'll just go and do that stitch with the colour that's already on the needle, unless it is a very important colour in a very important area of the chart. So if it's like a very bright red in the middle of this section, I will do it, because there's an obvious reason why they've chosen such a poignant colour, a strong colour, even if it's just the one stitch. Or if it's in somewhere like her face, which there's like one stitch here in her pupil, or two stitches that are highlighting that eye. Now, if I decided I'm not going to bother doing those two, I'm not going to get a new strand for that, you wouldn't see her eye, you wouldn't see her pupil. There would be no highlight there. So yeah, do be careful about that. Don't be mowing down the ninja stitches that are absolutely essential to the picture. But when you're talking about somewhere in here, yeah, the occasional one, because I don't want to be encouraging people really to not follow their charts. But realistically, I'm just sort of being realistic about it. There will be times when you're tired and you just think, oh, to hell with it. There will be times. Okay, where am I now? Why is this colour not in here? Oh, it's this one here. It's parked a bit badly. Okay, so that what I actually said there was a bit of a tip, I think. Could be taken as a bit of a tip. Isn't it frustrating when your needle comes out and your thread is at the back of the work, so you have to pull it over to the front to thread it again. And it's always going to happen when you've got a very short piece that you can't really do very well, pulling it over to the front. Oh, some of my thread has popped through from the back. I need one of those snag nabbit items. I need to get one of those. I did write it down and I'd forgotten. Okay, so, well, no other news really. On the stitching front, I think I have told you pretty much what I've been working on and where I'm at. So I've got my two whips that I'm working sort of simultaneously, the Thomas Kincaid and the large, very large Riverwalk charm. And there is a couple of other things that I'm working on as well in between. One is the Modern Folk Embroidery, Fruits of Plenty. And then there's another couple of smaller ones that I'm sort of, bringing out every so often when I'm just tired of everything else. Stuff that I can do in the bed where I don't have to have too much light, don't have to have my big lamp, which I have at the moment. Just easier stitching. Or maybe something that's got like bigger stitches, 16 count or 18 count, rather than these, because I don't think I would have great difficulty doing something like this in my bed, because I would be able to position my stand okay, but I wouldn't be able to get the right lighting, and I'd have to rearrange my pillows into something quite comfortable. Yeah, it would be awful. And then the cat would jump onto the bed and start rifling through my things, and yeah, it's just it would be more stress than I actually need. So I'm actually really enjoying stitching on her at the moment, much more than I anticipated. Really and honestly, I am. And I don't mind actually doing a few more stitch with me's, or actually stitching on her a bit more frequently. And sometimes, being the way I am, such an indecisive person, because I know I'm an indecisive person, absolutely terribly, I often ask you guys for your advice or your tips or your thoughts. So if you would like me to stitch more on Sad Fairy, let me know. Just put it in the comments, and I can do a few more stitch with me's on her. If you would like me to stitch more on my Riverwalk charm, just mention it in the comments, and maybe I can do a few more stitch with me's on Riverwalk charm. And I'll just leave it at those two for the moment, because if I start adding more in and I get too many different responses, I'm just going to end up where I'm at the moment, which is being indecisive. So I'm not going to be able to do. But maybe I can, I'd be happy to do a few more stitch with me's. Now that I'm more or less getting settled into my new home. Well, I think I am settled actually. There's just a few things which need sorting out. And one is a fireplace. I need to get a fireplace. We actually have the inset already built in when we moved in, but we didn't have the surround, the kind of mantelpiece and all that stuff. So I do need to give a call to a gas engineer to come and check our chimney and make sure that, everything is safe, because I wouldn't want to be installing things without safety checks. That's one of the items that's still pending, because it wasn't necessarily an urgent thing when we first moved in. In fact, it wasn't urgent at all, because we have central heating, and that's what most people use throughout the winter. What on earth is going on here? I've got two parked, have I? Okay, this is another case of park threads going nuts and not being able to tell where I'm supposed to park. So yeah, that's one thing that needs attending to, getting a new fireplace. And I think, yeah, just a couple of other little odd jobs. But essentially, we have settled in quite well. My son is doing well at school. He's also been a bit indecisive, because he's had to choose his course subjects going into his fourth year in high school. And I don't know how the system works in other countries, but he's to choose certain subjects going forward, and he's to drop certain subjects, based on his interests, and partly to do with what it is he wants to follow career-wise. But I think it's a very difficult age at 15 to know what you want to do. I mean, obviously you can understand kids not wanting to commit to a career choice, because they know that they might change their minds later on. But anyway, regardless whether they change their minds or not, he kind of has to make a decision, and he's had to choose subjects. So we had like a parents' evening. We had to go and talk to the teachers and everything. And so my son is like, well, I'm interested in computers. I'm interested in is it graphic design, I think he said, and what can I do to get to do those things? And like, well, yeah, you need computing and maybe computer science and, you know, stuff like that. And art would be a good thing. So we picked out the most obvious subjects, but then he's still to pick, I think it was 2 more subjects, and he's just not able to make a decision. I think he dropped French because it just wasn't working. He wasn't interested and wasn't really paying attention in the classroom. So we kind of said, well, there's no point in keeping French if you're not going to be engaged. If you're not engaged and you're not interested, you're not going to work at it, you know, just leave that one. He doesn't really need French in Scotland, to be honest. I think it's always good to have languages myself, but I think with the career path that he's most likely to choose, it's probably one of the top ones to drop. And then we're kind of like, well, how about physics? Because if you know, he's like, you know, I like astronomy and I like space stuff. It's like, well, okay, maybe physics. But he's kind of too far behind now to be able to choose that one. So it's, yeah, it's been a really confusing few weeks for him and for us, trying to advise him as best we can without actually trying to persuade him to do something which he doesn't want to do, but trying to encourage him. So it's kind of just as confusing for parents as it is for the kids, actually. I mean, you can only guide them and hope that the decisions that they have made are good for them. So we'll see how that goes. And so there's been a lot of time there spent in and out of the schools, meeting rooms and classes and all sorts of stuff. So I like to take some of these threads that I'm not working on, put them over my Needleminder. I know other people use something called, is it bobbies? Bobbies, and they're these little plastic cups and you wind your threads around. But I honestly don't feel like it would work for me. I don't know why, I just don't feel like it would. Got so used to the method that I've gotten used to. Now, I feel like I've had to do so many ninja stitches, so many different colour changes in this area. It's quite bumpy at the back. I don't think there is any way around that when you're using 2 strands on a 25 count, which is really tiny, and you've got lots of colour changes. I just do not think, whatever way I stitch that, I'm going to have a smooth back. It's just going to be a little bit bumpy. And I'm only literally moving from stitch to stitch. So there you go. It's not like I'm even carrying the thread very far. What also drives me a bit nuts is sometimes I can't find a bobbin. Can't find one of my bobbins in the box. So I'm thinking, well, it must have fallen on the floor or it's gone down the side of the couch. So I get up and I start looking and I look all over the floor. And then I basically spend 20 minutes checking everything around me. Maybe the cat picked it up. The cat wasn't in the room when I, was using it. And what's going on? And then, after I've done all that searching for half an hour, it's there. It's in the box. It's just like slid down underneath all the others. So it's kind of lying flat underneath, or the number's hidden by another bobbin, and it's like, it drives me nuts. But hey, I'm still looking. 169 has done a runner. I know it's in here. It has to be in here. I've probably just put it in the wrong place. It has to be here because I think I took a thread from it later. Oh, goodness me. No wonder I couldn't find it. I have that colour in a little plastic pouch, which was in my bag and not in my box. Mystery solved. Great detective work, guys. So that can go in there. So obviously I had taken the thread and not stuck it on a bobbin. Okay, now let's see how we are doing. 1, 2, done that colour. Back down to the left. So I'm working left to right. Where did that come from? I honestly spend more time looking for these bobbins than I do actually stitching, which is one of the reasons why, because they slide down to the bottom of the box. It's one of the reasons why I have put everything in an envelope, because you can't really lose an envelope that easily. Or maybe you can, but I haven't. And so I've put everything in numerical order, in envelopes, in a box, and I just flick through them till I get to the number I need. And that is a safer bet for me. And I don't even have the threads wound around a bobbin or anything. It's all just shoved inside an envelope. So yeah, I seem to have chosen a really horrible part of the chart to do a stitch with me. So you have to give me a little bit of credit for my pains. But you know, just as I come to the end of this session, hilariously enough, I've got to the section here where it's all plain sailing. But I guess the good thing is that whilst I've been struggling here with various issues, you've been learning either to steer clear from full coverage charts like this, or you know what to expect. So either way, it's a good thing, right? Because you may have learned something today. Goodness me, my tummy is grumbling now. Now, I'm not going to park too far down below because I don't like to do that. It just makes things even bumpier and clumpier. So I'm not going to do that. No. So yeah, now that is really detailed here. I will zoom in a bit so you can see, hopefully, how detailed that is compared to the other sections around the chart. And it is actually a little bit painstaking, but I mean, it's like that saying, you get what you pay for. You put enough effort into something and you get a nice result, right? Sometimes it's nice to have some variation in the actual stitching, as in some parts being confetti, other parts being, you know, block colours that you can just zip along happily. This is definitely that variation. It has got that variation for definite. And I remember there were sections down near the bottom, further down here, that just complete white all the way along, which wasn't fantastic for your eyes now, but oh, why is my stand wobbling? Not fantastic for your eyes, but great to be able to just sail across with all the white. So now I think I've got a few greens and then a few blacks, and then we're done with this confetti area anyway. Definitely not done with the stitching. Not done with this at all. We've still got all this to do again, which to me feels a bit crazy at the moment. Yeah, all this to do again, down the lower part and on the side. And I can show you on my pattern keeper just, you know, how much I've actually done. Can I turn it this way? Yeah, I can. So there you can see that's the area I've been working on, going down. I've actually reached the end of the chart here, which is all hidden behind. So I've got all this section to do, and then I've got the bottom section to do. So I've not been working by page, but yeah, that's roughly coming up to 50%. So I think I'm going to carry on working down that way, and then just, you know, square off the whole top and then work along the bottom I think that's a good plan for this. It's looking lovely. So yeah, let me know if you'd like me to do a bit more stitching on this one, or more stitch with me's on this one, or whether you'd like to see more of the Riverwalk charm, or even the Thomas Kincaid Home for the Holidays, or yeah, any of these three. Just let me know and I'll see what I can do. So I think I'll take a break now, and yeah, I might come back and do a little bit more, try and get a little bit more down on this diagonal, just to give it, you know, a good session. And that's about everything. So I hope you have a lovely day and enjoy your stitching. And thanks for watching, and I'll be back again soon. Misty, would you like to come down from the headboard? There's no point asking a cat not to do something because they totally don't care. Misty, are you going to completely mess up my video now? I think she just doesn't like the fact that I'm giving you attention and I'm not giving her attention, but she gets loads of attention, trust me. Before I end, I just have to show you this, because the whole time that I've been talking, some little furry creature has just slipped into my bedside table and she has made herself quite happy, and I just have to show you this. Well, hello there. You do look very comfortable on top of all my things. Found a nice dark place to sleep, didn't you? At least she's behaving now.